Officers of any military are the backbone of military organization, communication, and execution of action. They are the ones that are responsible to keep morale up, have a plan of action, and rally their troops to accomplish missions. Those principles are the same in Hell Let Loose. Officers are important to communicate with not only other officers and commanders as a whole, but to communicate with your squad to do what needs to be done. With a competent officer corps, you can do a lot even if your commander is the equivalent of Colonel Klink. So here's a guide of how to play Officer Right. Now let's go over important subjects we're going to discuss in today's video. We're going to cover loadout, expectations and responsibilities, awareness, basic tactics, and extra tips and tricks in battle. In regards to your loadout, it's very much a personal preference what you want to use. We're still going to go through the classes anyway, so you know your options. If you've never touched Officer or you wish to use this first class setup, here's the following. For the US, you have the Thompson and M1911. For the Germans, you have the MP40 and Luger. And for the Soviets, you have the PPSH with a box mag and TT-33. Now, the second class setup is the M1 Carbine and M1911 for the US. For the Germans, you have the Gewehr 43 and P38. And for the Soviets, you have the SVT-40 and the TT-33. And for your third class setup, you have a couple different options depending on what country you're playing. For the Americans, you'll have the M1 Garand. For the Germans, you'll have the Kar-98. And for the Soviets, you'll have the PPSH with a drum mag. Now, with all these classes, you will have frags and smoke grenades, so keep that in mind as well. People who play Officer do have a lot of responsibility put upon them and do have some expectations that they need to meet. First and foremost, communication. You need to be talking to other officers, commander, tank commanders, recon teams, and arguably the most important, your own squad. This is to try and formulate plans, communicate garrison placements, call out enemy movements, and so on. You don't even need to talk that much. You just need to talk as much as you need to, as little as you need to, but get the point across, and if need be, put points down, such as for garrisons, infantry movements, and so on. The game itself even says to have communication, and that's what you'll see on screen now, right in the field manual, right here. Chances are, if you are trying to communicate, someone will at least try to communicate to you back, whether it's an officer of any sort or any of your squad members. And even if you don't have anyone in your squad talking right now, or one or two people, chances are the people who will actually talk to you will start folding into your unit more often than not. So keep that in mind for the communication. Another big responsibility of an officer is to get outposts for your squad mate and a garrison for the team. And you can do this by equipping the Watch, where you can put an outpost anywhere in the blue zone and 2 squares in the red zone. And the same can go for a garrison, but you need 50 supplies to build a garrison in the blue zone and 100 supplies in the red zone. Now, when you put an outpost down, your guys can spawn in every 20 seconds and only your squad can use it. Where a garrison, anyone can use it and they can spawn every 40 seconds. This is good for assaulting points, defending your points, and it's important to keep these up and alive. And if you see an opportunity to get a garrison up in a good place, whether that's on attack or defense, do it. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Try and do it yourself if all possible. Because letting the next guy do it or thinking, that guy will get it. Make sure they get it if they're saying they get it. And if they don't, do it yourself. It's one of those that you can't pass the buck on or your team will most likely lose the game. So just keep wary of where garrisons are and if you can get garrisons up for your team. Trust me, a lot of people will be thankful for it. Now, there are several ways to get garrisons up using different supply methods, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. First and foremost, you have the most utilized method, which is airdrops from command. You can have command drop you in supplies, and it's 100 supplies. But these are coming from the air. They're very easily seen, and they can telegraph your position whether you're in the blue zone or the red zone. So that's the only major con with using supply drops from command, but they are pretty fast getting supplies to you. And if you're behind the lines, you don't have time to wait for supply trucks or potentially someone to be a good support player and give you supplies. Which moves us on to our other 2 ways of getting supplies, which you see on screen now. Supply truck. Supply truck has 2 crates that are 150 supplies each. And no matter where, if you're in the red zone or blue zone, you'll have enough supplies to get a garrison up. Now, there are certain stipulations with the truck, but that's probably for another video. But the main thing you need to know is you have 2 supply crates. You can go wherever you need to. As you see on the screen, I'm using them to build up backup garrisons. Use it for that if you need to. But you can use these to get behind the lines as well and sneakily put up garrisons in the red zone. So keep that in mind as well. Your third option, and probably the most underutilized option, is a support player. Now, support players have a supply crate that has 50 supplies in it. Good for building backup garrisons and blue line garrisons. But if you are able to coordinate well with your squad and alternate 2 people on support, you can get 2 of those 50 supply crates down and get a garrison in the red zone. This requires a lot of coordination and decent squad members, or at least people who are communicating and are willing to do this. So this one isn't as effective, but you can still have 1 support player and get backup garrisons / blue line garrisons. So keep that all in mind with your supplies and how to go about getting garrisons up, either in the blue zone, red zone, and those are your 3 main methods of getting garrisons down using different supply methods. Another high point I'm going to hit on is execution of plans and order giving. Now, you're a squad lead. Give orders as you need to. You are in command of at least potentially 5 other people, and if they're talking, you're able to at least give them orders. Now, you don't need to boss them around like you're a drill sergeant. You just need to say, hey, can I get you guys to go over here or do this, please, so we can do this. If you give them a rhyme or reason to it, like, oh, hey, I need you guys to take this position so we can flank them, chances are your squad will do that. Give them a move marker and they'll move to it. Even if you're not there with them and you're needing to do something else, most of the time, people will understand that. In this example, I'm asking my squad to break out from the bridge and head south so we can hit the enemy from the west to flank out the enemy. Meanwhile, I'm going over to the far right flank and getting a garrison up for the rest of the team so we can keep advancing and getting off the bridge. So I'm both helping the team and giving my men orders, and this will help get around the enemy and flank them on the west, which is what I wanted to do. In regards to giving orders to your squad and wondering if they'll actually do them or not, as long as you're being fair but firm and giving them reasons for doing stuff instead of just telling them to do something just for the sake of it, you'll be fine. As a squad lead, it is your responsibility to know where to move your troops and where you're at all times. Having good situational and map awareness, terrain awareness, and everything in between is a good trait to have as a squad lead. You don't want to be Captain Sobel running around like a headless chicken not knowing where you're at. Now, if you're a newer squad leader, you're newer to the game, you're still trying to learn the maps and learn the terrain, with more time, you'll get better at this and you'll have better map and terrain awareness. So don't fret if you're not the best at this right now. This comes with time. It's also good to be aware of everything else going on that isn't your team, including where your allies are on the front line, recon teams, friendly tanks, where the commander is. Are garrisons under attack? Do we have any garrisons at all? And just all these little bits and pieces to help make it better for your team and to make your squad more efficient. So always be looking at the map as best you can to coordinate with other squads, and not only your squad, but make better tactics and decisions for yourself and your team. The biggest thing in terms of tactics is adapt. Adapt to an ever-changing battle. If you don't adapt, you will start losing games very, very quickly. Doing the same thing over and over is the definition of insanity. And if you're doing that, you're not going to win too many games as a squad lead, or at least as a team in general. If you have the same people doing the same thing over and over again with no differential tactics in mind or different approaches. One big tactic to do in this game is to simply flank the enemy. It sounds very simple because it is. Too many times have I seen front lines be nothing but a jumbled mess that isn't doing anything out of the box. It's just a forward assault. You guys can go around the enemy. You can flank them out, widen the front line, force them to deal with you, and even if you don't break through, if you can take some manpower off the front line, it might be enough to break them. Just little tactics like that here and there that make the difference in the long run. In this example here, it is a little hard to see, but you see blue dots everywhere. I'm all the way far by north of City Overlook. Instead of doing a forward assault from Carriage Depot, we spread out a bunch of garrisons all around to at least make a very big northern and easterly push. There's not really much we can do to the south because it's a southerly objective, but my point still stands. Instead of doing a straightforward attack, we do a semicircle of an assault, wearing down their manpower and getting closer and closer as we can. If there's one thing in general to take away from all this, regardless of any tactic you employ, whether it's a flank, envelopment, forward assault, sabotage, whatever, it's just to simply take initiative. If you see something and you can do something about it, do it. Whether it's on attack or defense, you could do so much more good than bad, potentially. And if you mess up, you live and you learn. Not We're not perfect. We're all human here. And by taking the initiative, you'll find yourself in a lot better situations a decent amount of the time, especially if you go with your gut and say, hey, there's a hole in the enemy front line. Let's see if we can sneak in and find garrisons and outposts, just as a quick example. You never know where it'll lead. It could be very good or could be nothing at all. But it's all to you and your team's gain, so keep that in mind. If you're wanting a defensive tactic to maybe think about, how about one of flank control? I kind of touched on this in my recon video, but it's more apparent as a squad lead, as a regular infantry squad lead. But in this case, you stick on one side of an objective, whether it's the left, right, northern, southern flank, whatever it is, and you guard that and prevent the enemy from taking that area. And if you do get overrun, you at least know where they're coming from, instead of it being a surprise that, oh, where'd they come from? Oh, they're coming from the north. Oh, well, that would have been good to know if we had guys there 3 minutes ago. Just as, again, another quick example. So by playing flight control on mostly an offensive game mode as the defending team, this works better. So if you want a defensive tactic, flank control would be one. And also just simply plugging gaps in a front line. Say, oh, we have a weak spot here, maybe good to watch this side, or just simply watch. Defense may not be the funnest thing to do, but you'll get action. Trust me, you'll get action. And don't be afraid to volunteer for defense. If anything, all the extra tips and tricks kind of apply to stuff I've already said, but it's more of just simply opening the playbook further and seeing what you can do out of it. Whether you wish to assault a tank with your composition or go around it. Guarding airheads. If you can get your squad to guard a garrison or a airhead before the rest of the main army, I'll do it. As I've already mentioned, you could do garrison with 2 support players. Takes a bit of coordination and people willing to do it, but so be it. Running anti-tank guns, although very uncommon on certain maps, would be very good. See if you can say, oh, hey, be more effective. Put an AT gun on that hill. You'll get some really good shots and wait for them. Or put an AT gun down this really long road. They got to come down. Just seeing what is all in your team's arsenal that you can do. And that is the most important bit there. Is seeing what your team can do best. And keep that in mind with all different classes. It's good to play the other classes too, so you know what you can and can't do. One last thing on the tips and tricks bit though, is don't be afraid to move your squad around. Don't be afraid to separate them. It's what you think you can do best. And if you can say, hey, you and you move here while me and so-and-so go here, we'll meet in the middle. Something along those lines, just a quick example. And don't be afraid to do that. You can get a lot more done in some cases. So it's just knowing where to move your squad around and when. And again, don't be afraid to give them orders. As long as you give them a rhyme or reason most of the time, they'll usually follow you into combat like that. So just a little extra tip and trick there. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much for watching. If there's anything I missed or anything you'd like to add, please put it in the comments below. Leave a like, and I'll see if I can get another video out soon with another guide. Leave in the comments what you'd like to see. Until then, Happy New Year's. Enjoy the new year in 2023.